going on YouTube? Thomas L here. With this new Western film titled The Kid coming out this week, I decided to do my top 10 favorite Western movies. Because Western is a pretty interesting genre. I mean, people are in the Wild Wild West. There's like horses, gunslingings, outlaws, cowboys, So, who doesn't love a good Western? Anyway, with that being said, here's my 10 favorite Western movies. Coming in at number 10 is maybe more of a comedic one, and that would be Blazing Saddles. I love Blazing Saddles. I mean, directed by Mel Brooks, starring the great Gene Wilder. Of course, you got Cleveland Little in this, who I didn't always thought that was Richard Pryor for some reason. I don't know why. When I first saw this, I literally thought that Cleveland Little was Richard Pryor. I never, probably because Gene Wilder and Richard Pryor worked together so much, so that could always been up. But I mean, this is pretty much more of a spoof of the Western genre. It's great. I mean, if you guys never seen Blazing Saddles, it's pretty much one of the best spoof films out there. Gene Wilder was great. Cleveland was amazing. I mean, I highly recommend it. I think you'll enjoy it. And the movie got released in, I believe, the early 70s, or I think around the 70s, or probably 80s, around that areas. But there are jokes here that really probably wouldn't go by today. But the movie is still the best. I mean, definitely check out Blazing Saddles. I mean, you'll enjoy it. Coming in at number 9 is Tombstone. Tombstone is great. I mean, here you got Kurt Russell as Wyatt Earp. You got Bill Paxton, Sam Elliott, Val Kilmer. Here, Val Kilmer plays Doc Holliday. Tombstone is a really good Western. I mean, believe it or not, this movie came out the same year as another Wyatt Earp movie, which had Kevin Costner in it. But between those two, I think this is the better film. It's amazing. I mean, really good cast, cool dialogue. The chemistry between the leads are really great. I mean, that's what really nails this movie. If you guys never seen Tombstone, I highly recommend it. It's really great. Coming in at number 8 is the remake of True Grit. Now, I really love the one with the original with John Wayne, but the remake is where it's at. I mean, it's usually always hard to see a remake that's actually better than the original, but this is actually better than the original, in my opinion. Although I will say John Wayne probably gave a better performance as Richard Cogburn, but Jeff Bridges as Cogburn here is awesome. I mean, it was directed by the Coen brothers, who also directed another Western movie last year, which was that Ballad of Buster Scruggs, which I saw. Oh, I'm sorry to say, I did not really like that movie that much, but anyway, True Grit is a really great Western. I mean, it was, of course, the movie that gave us Haley Steinfeld, by the way. I mean, it's pretty much Haley Steinfeld's first feature film. She was great here. I mean, she's pretty much trying to find the guys who, pretty much killed her father. It's a really fun Western. I mean, it also stars Barry Pepper, Josh Brolin, Matt Damon. Really good movie. I mean, if you guys never seen the remake of True Grit, check it out. It's really good. And also, I gotta say, definitely check out the original as well. I mean, John Wayne, he was the king of Western movies. And the original True Grit is also the best. So, if you ever want to do a double feature, check out both this and the original True Grit. And check out Richard Cogburn. I mean, that was a cool character. Alright, coming in at number 7 is Once Upon a Time in the West. I mean, here you had a really good cast. You had Claudia Cardinale, Charles Bronson, Henry Fonda, Frank Wolf was in this. It was directed by Western filmmaker Sergio Leone. Great film. I mean, this is a really classic Western. I mean, In it, there's like a single piece of land around Flagstone with water on it, and like rail Baron Morton, played by Gabriel Forzetzi, aims to have it, and so like knowing the new railroad will like have to stop there, he pretty much sends his henchman named Frank, played by Henry Fonda, to scare the land's owner, McBain, played by Frank Wolf. And so, like, Frank kills him instead and pins it on a known bandit named Cheyenne, played by Jason Raybars. And so, like, meanwhile, a mysterious gunslinger with a scorched saddle, played by Charles Bronson, and McBain's new wife, Jill, played by Claudia Cottonelle. They arrive in town and crazy stuff happens in this. I mean, it's a really classic spaghetti western. I mean, back in the 70s, 60s, 30s, and around the golden age of Hollywood, they had some really classic western movies. And Sergio he did great with these films. I mean, if you guys never seen Once Upon a Time in the West, check it out. I mean, Henry Fonda was great. Charles Bronson was incredible. Definitely check this one out. Coming in at number 6 is High Noon. Now, this movie, I believe, got released in 1955, if I'm not mistaken. And here, of course, you got the late, great Gary Cooper with Grace Kelly. And, Gary Cooper pretty much plays former Marshal Will Kane, who is, preparing to leave the small town of Hadyville, New Mexico, with his new bride, Amy, played by Grace Kelly, who, by the way, went on to become a princess. I mean, before Meghan Markle became the first American princess, the first actress turned princess, it was Grace Kelly. Just there's a little Hollywood tidbit for you there. Anyway, as I was saying, and when Will Kane, learns that local criminal Frank Miller has, been set free and is coming to seek revenge on the marshal who turned him in. He pretty much starts recruiting deputies to fight Miller, and all hell breaks loose here. High Noon is a classic film. I mean, Gary Cooper, he was a Western legend. He was great. I mean, the other cast is pretty good. It was full on black and white. Really good film. And I remember hearing rumors words that there might be a remake of this coming, but I don't know if that will ever happen, but we'll see. Hey, they remade True Grit, and the remake actually ended up being better than the original, so anything could happen, I guess. Alright, coming in at number 5 is The Wild Bunch. Now, there's actually lots of people who probably consider this to be their number 1 favorite. It's pretty much considered one of the best Western movies of all time. I loved it, but it's not the best of all time. I mean, The Wild Bunch is a classic. I mean, you got Ernest Borgnine, William Holden. You also got Ben Johnson, Warren Oates, Robert Ryan is in this. Some really good cast members. In this, gritty Western classic, aging outlaw Pike Bishop, played by William Holden, prepares to he pretty much prepares to retire after one final robbery, and so he's joined by his gang, which includes Dutch Angstrom, played by Ernest Borgnine, and brothers Lyle, played by Warren Oates, and Tector Gorch, played by Ben Johnson. And Bishop discovers the heist is a setup or orchestrated and part by his own partner, Deke Dorn, played by Robert Ryan. And so pretty much the remaining gang, take refuge in Mexican territory. And so Dorn, trails them resulting in gun files with plenty of casualties. It's a really good one. I mean, it's a really fun film, some cool gunslings. This movie got released in the late 60s. It's a Western that still holds up today. And believe it or not, Mel Gibson is directing a remake of this. So It'll be interesting to see how that remake turns out. But if you guys never seen Wild Bunch, I highly recommend that. I think you'll enjoy it. Okay, let me see. Coming in at number 4 is Quentin Tarantino's directed film Django Unchained. This movie was great. I mean, it's probably one of the most violent Western movies I've ever seen. Sorry about that. Anyway, of course, you got Jamie Foxx, Kerry Washington's in this, Samuel L. Jackson, Christoph Waltz, which of course won him his second Oscar, Leonardo DiCaprio, Jonah Hill even has a role in this. I mean, here, it takes place 2 years before the Civil War, and Django, played by Fox, is like a slave who finds himself accompanying a German bounty hunter named Dr. King, also played by Christoph Waltz, and he's on a mission to capture the vicious Brito brothers. And so, like, their mission, successfully. So it's pretty much free Django, and together they hunt the South's most wanted criminals. And so, like, their travels, of course, take them to the infamous plantation of shady Calvin Kennedy, played by Leo DiCaprio, where pretty much Kennedy has like Django's wife pretty much hostage and as a slave and all. This is a really interesting film. I mean, Quentin Tarantino, he did such a great job at directing this. Leo DiCaprio, I mean, him as the bad guy, who knew he could play a bad guy really well? I mean, this movie was just awesome. It was really fun, had good performances. The gunsling scenes was pretty cool. I mean, this movie was violent all the way around, And when I mean violent, I mean violent. If you guys still never seen Django Unchained, I highly recommend it. It's great. Coming in at number 3 is The Searchers. Now, this movie stars John Wayne and was directed by the great John Ford. And also, you had Jeffrey Hunter, Natalie Wood was in this. I mean, here you got John Wayne playing Ethan Edwards, who returns home to Texas after the Civil War, and so like when members of his brother's families are killed or abducted by Comanches, he vows to track down the surviving relatives and bring them home. But he pretty much gets word that like his niece Debbie, played by Natalie Wood, is alive, and along with her adopted brother Martin Powley, played by Jeffrey Hunter, he embarks on a dangerous mission to find her, and he's pretty much trying to find his like a niece and all. And this movie it's a classic Western. True Grit was like the original True Grit was great, but my favorite John Wayne Western would probably be The Searchers. It's awesome. I mean, John Wayne was great. He was a Western legend. I know there's stuff like lots of stuff in the news about John Wayne now that he was racist and stuff like that. I mean, he may be, but you know what? Him in Western movies. He was still definitely one of the best Western actors out there. I mean, and The Searchers, it's definitely pretty much one of its best. If you guys never seen The Searchers by now, I highly recommend it. It's a great film. Coming in at number 2 is The Magnificent Seven. And now I'm going to go with the original. The remake with Denzel, Chris Pratt, Vincent D'Onofrio, Ethan Hawke, and all. That movie was good, but the original was much better. I mean, the original was actually a remake of itself, by the way. It was a remake of the Japanese film Seven Samurais, which was directed by Akira. I was mispronounced his last name, but he's actually a legend, a legendary filmmaker. But The Magnificent Seven, the remake it was the Expendables of that era, like, it featured loads of iconic actors, like Steve McQueen, Charles Bronson. Who else was in this? Oh yeah, Eli Walsh was in this. You also had Yul Brynner, Robert Vaughn. Really great cast. I mean, here you got like bandits who are who terrorizes a small Mexican farming village each year, and several of the village elders send 3 of the farmers into the United States to search for the gunmen to defend them. And so like they end up with 7 each, like each of whom comes for a different reason, and so they pretty much must prepare this town to repulse an army of dirty bandits who arrive, who will of course arrive wanting food and all. This movie got released in 1960, and I think it's a movie that still holds up today. It's a really classic western with a great cast. Steve McQueen. I mean, he was the GOAT back in the days. Of course, Charles Bronson, another Charles Bronson film on my list. He was a legend. I mean, who doesn't love Charles Bronson? Yul Brynner was great. And I mean, Magnificent Seven was also directed by John Sturges. And the one who scripted Seven Samurais, the one who directed Seven Samurais, Akira Kurosawa. I was mispronounced his last name. He's actually a legend director. But anyway, he actually was the screenwriter for this. It's a classic. I mean, it's definitely one of the rare remakes that's better than the original. I mean, great cast. It's really fun. Like, if you guys never seen the original Magnificent Seven, I highly recommend it. I think you'll enjoy it. And the remake with Denzel was actually pretty decent. Not great as the original, but it was still a pretty decent remake. All right, now my number 1 favorite Western movie of all time. That's going to The Good, the Bad, and the Ugly. Another movie directed by Sergio Leone, who's pretty much one of the best directors of that era. I mean, Sergio Leone. I mean, when you want to talk great film, like great iconic filmmakers, Sergio Leone is one to talk about. Like, he's not really my like top 10 favorite directors of all time, nothing like that. But his movies were iconic all around. Like, of course, we were just talking about the Once Upon a Time in the West movie. Of course, he did stuff like Fistful of Dollars. He he did lots of really great spaghetti western movies. And Sergio Leone, him with The Good, the Bad, and the Ugly, is probably my favorite movie out of his. I mean, you got Clint Eastwood, the aforementioned Eli Walsh is in this. And like in it, you got Clint Eastwood who plays a mysterious stranger named Joe, and you got Eli Walsh as a Mexican outlaw named Tuco, who form a uneasy partnership, and like Joe, turns into the bandit for the reward money, and so like they rescue him just as he began hanging, and so like when Joe's shot at the news goes awry during like one escape. A furious, Tuco pretty much tries to have him murdered, and it's a really classic Western movie. I mean, this movie got released in. When did this get released again? I think the 60s, if I'm not mistaken. Oh, 1966, man. Movie got released in 1966. I mean, Clint Eastwood was great. Of course, you had Lee Van Cleef. Eli Walsh was great. Really amazing cast. I mean, Clint Eastwood, him and John Wayne are maybe 2 of the best Western actors ever. I mean, it's a shame that I don't think they ever done a movie together. That was kind of a shame that Clint Eastwood and I mean, I would have loved to have seen Clint Eastwood and John Wayne do something together because those 2 were Western legends. And this movie is definitely a classic spaghetti western. If you guys still never seen The Good, the Bad, and the Ugly by now, I highly recommend it. I think if you're want to check out a classic western movies, this is definitely one to check out. Anyway, that's pretty much it. Let me do the quick rundown. Number 10, Blazing Saddles. 9, Tombstone. 8, True Grit. 7, Once Upon a Time in Hollywood. 6, High Noon. 5, The Wild Bunch. 4, Django Unchained. 3, The Searchers. 2, The Magnificent Seven. 1, The Good, the Bad, and the Ugly. Now, there's been loads of other Western movies over the years. Let me pull the credit list. Western movies. Let's see. Wyatt Earp is a good one. Tombstones is a better one, though, but No Country for a Man. Bone Tomahawk. I mean, yeah, Kurt Russell. I mean, that's kind of a weird film that Kurt Russell was in, by the way. I mean, Cannibals in the Wild Wild West. Yeah. 310 Yuma, both the remake and original. The remake is actually better, though. The Assassination of Jesse James with Brad Pitt was good. Cowboys and Aliens was okay. Dancing with Wolves was alright. Unforgiven. Lots of people probably add Unforgiven in this list. I mean, that's a good one, but I'm not really a big Unforgiven fan as most people are, so let's see. Open Range with Kevin Costner was good. Wild Wild West. Oh God, no way. Let's see what else we have here. Butch Cassidy and the Sundance Kid's a good one. Silverado, A Fistful of Dollars, which was also directed by Sergio Leone. Outlaw Josie Wales, High Paying Drifters, also with Clint Eastwood. The Shooters, which I believe also had John Wayne in it. Little Big Man's a good one. Oh, you got Stagecoach here. Lots of pretty classic Western movies over the years. I mean, I'm really happy to see that the Western genre is slightly coming back in a way. I mean, the Western genre back in the days was, let me just say, the Western films was the comic books of that era. Kind of like how today we got so many comic book movies coming out and stuff. In that era, it was mainly Westerns. Like, Westerns was people's comic book films, So it's cool to see that the Western genre isn't dying or anything, because it's a cool genre, and with stuff like The Kid and Battle of Buster Scruggs and Sisters Brothers coming, it's nice to see the Western genre is not dead, Anyway, let me leave it to you guys. What are some of your favorite Western movies of all time? Drop a comment below. Don't forget to like, subscribe, hit that bell for more notifications. This here is Tom Sells signing off.